Chair, I just want to draw the Minister's attention to section 55. It talks about the Speaker controlling and administering the parliamentary precincts, and it talks specifically about the powers that are vested in the Speaker, and then it kind of self-refers back in subsection 2 to subsection 1, but it's pretty unclear about what the precincts mean. So I'm thinking of a specific example here where, for example, is it the Minister's view that the Speaker has authority and powers under this legislation to direct and control members of various workforces, such as security guards, the parliamentary colleagues or staff working with MPs, and the press gallery? And I'm thinking about examples where there could be events happening on the forecourt and members of Parliament might want their EAs and others present. Can the Speaker, under the legislation as it's currently worded, make an order to remove the press gallery, for example, or to require staff to go back inside? The reason I raise this, Madam Chair, is that in some of those situations, members of Parliament could feel quite insecure, given the volatility at the moment around public protest and polarised views, and parliamentary members may not want to venture onto the forecourt if they don't feel they have adequate support from staff. Equally, there is a duty for the fourth estate, the media in this place, to make sure that everything here happens transparently, and it is a great public interest when there are large crowds on the forecourt. Now, it may well be, I'm not challenging anything that has happened over recent times. It may well be that that is the Minister's understanding, but I question whether the legislation as it's currently worded actually does make that explicit, and whether, if that is his view and if it was the will of the committee, it should be added. If it was not the will of the committee, or if there were not public submissions on these very important points, then my view would be that the legislation should be read at face value, and that the clarification should be made by an amendment, or we should have it on the record of what actually the committee came to conclude here. Madam Chair, these are not entirely hypothetical situations, which is why I'm raising them very respectfully, but I do think that the public interest, the media interest, and also the personal views of MPs when it comes to staff and resourcing and support need to be considered when we're looking at the boundaries that relate to section 55, which really does confer an awful lot of power to the Speaker, or vested in the Speaker, as is right to have that power, but I think the boundaries need to be extremely clear so that in those situations everybody is comfortable and clear about what the rules are, and when they could decline or not follow a direction, or when they're required to under this legislation.
Right Honourable Adrian Rurawhe.
Hopefully I can be helpful on that particular question. It's actually a question I asked at Select Committee. What we need to remember is that under the new set of rules and under this new legislation, which we'll talk about in Part 7, there's a clear monitoring role and reporting role, and the direct reporting is with the CEO of Parliamentary Service. The Speaker of the House has overall authority, but doesn't actually carry it out himself or herself. And so, you know, it's really important that we recognise that the parliamentary security will be operating in a very professional way under clear rules, and in fact the regime for reporting such incidents and carrying that out is at arm's length from the Speaker of the House.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Chris Bishop.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm grateful to my friend, Mr. Rurawhe, for outlining that. Of course, with his experience as a former Speaker, I think he would have been able to, go through these issues at Select Committee, which I'm sure they did. The member does raise a good point. I mean, the Speaker has broad discretion in administration and control of the precincts. That's what Clause 55 means. The easiest way to think about it is the Speaker is essentially the Minister of Parliament. They're in charge of Parliament. They're like Parliament's Minister. It's not a perfect analogy, it's an inapt analogy, but it's close enough to the truth. But of course, there's a couple of checks on the Speaker just having, unlimited power. One is that he's subject to the control of the House, and, I've been around long enough to see no confidence motions, and sometimes they get moved and most times they don't, but they sit on the order paper, and, members who've been around for a while remember some of the back and forwards about those. So ultimately the House is in control of who the Speaker is, so that is actually a really important check. And then the other thing I would say is that the Speaker has to act reasonably. And why do I say that? Well, there's quite a long line of case law around this, most notably the Beggs case, which is to do with protest and assembly on the forecourt. And of course the Speaker, as indeed the whole of Parliament is subject to the New Zealand Bill of Rights Act 1990 by dint of Section 3. Is it Section 3? Yes, it is. My friend James Meagher's nodding at me. Section 3 of the Bill of Rights, which makes both the Parliament, well, all of the Parliament, the Executive, the Legislature, the Executive, and the judicial branches of government subject to the Bill of Rights, which means that powers in relation to Parliament have to be exercised in accordance with the Bill of Rights. And so that is an important check as well. So I understand where the member's coming from, but of course Clause 7 is the substantive change that we're making around the parliamentary security officers, which is why we think the rubber hits the road on this stuff.
Ingrid.
Okay, so for those who are probably also wondering, a great way could be sit there and say, is the Speaker is the caretaker of Parliament in the aspect of they decide what, they basically are the guardian of doing it, and considering it's the only role that actually has a residence on site for where that accommodation on site is the Speaker's apartment. No other MP or minister has sleeping facilities, officially speaking, in Parliament. Not sure about unofficially though. I'm pretty sure quite a few have fallen asleep in their offices at some point. You know, as does happen on there. Not much else can be clarified in that section there. So let's see what more comes off from Ingrid.
Thanks for watching. Make sure you're subscribed to our Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Instagram, TikTok, News Guide, the Order Paper Podcast.